Today's video is a quick experiment of how to dry your hay the quickest. Now, everybody has their own opinions, whether you put it in a tall windrow or whether you spread it out, which way is going to do it the quickest. The mower that we're going to be using is a Hesston 1372, and it has steel-on-steel rollers, and those steel-on-steel rollers are essentially going to create a crimp every 2 inches. The hay that we're cutting is roughly 50% Timothy, probably about 30% fescue, and 20% clover. Really good, really thick hay. So I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna get that cut. Now we're gonna do two different methods. We're gonna do one method where it's going to be just a windrow. So basically I'll bring the fans in so that it's as tall as a windrow as I can make and as narrow as one as I can make. And then we're gonna do another one where it's just open, completely open. The fans are completely open, so it won't make it into a pile. It's literally just going to cut it and set it down on the ground after it goes through the conditioner and not be lumped up anywhere. We're gonna see which one is the best way to dry. You can see the sun is on the opposite side. It's morning. We let it set overnight like we talked about. We're just gonna go see if the dew even made a difference on the moisture test. And then, of course, we're just gonna see if it's ready to get raked or if we need to wait a little bit. Right now, we got it out, we zeroed it, and we're gonna check. I'll be honest, I already peak checked there. It's quite a bit more moist than what I would have expected. So let's throw this in here and see what we got. So that's saying 24%, 25% almost. It has gotten way moister overnight, which is interesting to me because you would think that whatever moisture it's got would just be on the top, but it's actually inside of it. So all this is still pretty moist. And we'll go down a little farther and just see what we got here. Nope. Go right there. That part's actually not that bad. What we got over here? Same. Interesting. Alright, so like I said, you can see that all of these rows right here, they were all pretty wet. So now we're going to go over here to where it's the wide fanned out area. And we're just going to set it in there and see. So 19%. Let's try down here. 17%. We're just going to keep making random spots again, just like we did earlier. 22, 23. Oof, 13.5. That area don't have hardly any clover in it. So I'm checking the clover areas because they definitely have more moisture. That area's got 26, 25%, 24%. Alright, so now let's say that we're not going to have a moisture tester to actually test it. Let's just say we're going to flip it over and look. So when I flip these over and look, yeah, I can tell that, is there a little moisture in them? Sure. Is it real wet? No. I would really consider baling it. But let's look at these now. So now we're going to flip this over and do the same thing. Now when you flip this over, you can see, let me get out of the light. When you flip that over, you can see it's pretty evident that it is much greener. So now what we're going to do, we're going to actually stick this in here and see what it shows us. And it's showing us 27, 28%. So much worse as far as moisture retaining underneath of these windrows. And you can see right there, I did the same thing where I flipped it over just to look. And at the end of the day, the wide windrows, so fanned out windrows like this, they do way better for drying than these tall, bulked up windrows. And it's not that they do bad, because like yesterday they were both close. You know, the wide fanned out windrows were definitely drier, but not by a whole lot. Either way, they were both ready to bale. However, we ran out of time at that point because it was already 8 o'clock at night and I wouldn't have been able to get raked and baled before dew set on. Now, looking at it this way, it would definitely be more beneficial to have it wide and fanned out versus in these windrows, because look how wet it is underneath now compared to what it was yesterday. Just a substantial difference in it. So, I'm not saying your kids are lazy, but what I am saying is that while your kids are playing Xbox, mine's playing real life. Look at that. And he leveled up again. Oh yeah, and for those of you saying that he needs to lower that to drive with, the reason he has it up that high is because the hay and the dust from the hay goes right into his face if he doesn't lift it up some. That skid steer's heavy enough that a 1,200-pound bale ain't gonna tip it over. Over in front of us, these are all the rows. Remember, we're lined up with that fence line. That's where our first windrow started, and then now everything you're seeing in front of you is raked. Now, we did not combine any rows, just for the simple fact that one, the windrows were too big and they were wrapping around the drive shaft, the front drive shaft on the tractor. The other reason was it was kind of hard to feed it in the baler. So single rows, so they're literally flipped over on themselves, so no changes, no combinations, any of that. We're gonna go ahead and start testing. So we got 9-2 there, 9 even right there. Let's try right here. About the same. Now we know this is going to be more wet just because it's a weed. Eight, 9, 8, 7. Let's go over one more right here. About 9-1. Now I do wish that I would have showed it before we raked it, because before I raked it, you could actually see that the ones that were fanned out were definitely drier. However, once we flipped it over, the wet side, or the wetter portions of the windrowed ones, those are dried out obviously, because now they're seeing sunlight, they're getting some wind on them. Whereas the ones that were already fanned out, they didn't really have to dry down. They didn't have to dry down at all, actually. They probably dried down a little too much. So if you're on a time crunch and you need to dry hay quick, definitely fan it out, especially if it's sunny out, or even if it's cloudy like today, because the little bit of sun, you know, the little bit of UV rays you're getting are across all of it and not just a small portion of it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helped you out seeing the differences in it and helps you figure out how to dry your hay quicker. Have a blessed week. We'll see you next time.